Drive charging.
All right, so welcome to the debut of our new podcast called Terra Neuh One. And we're going to sit here and talk about everything geek. We've got the Knightwatchman, that's me.
I'm Rubber Ducky. And the intern.
And the Dark Intern.
If he ends up leaving us in a couple months, we'll just have to have him call in.
Yeah.
That's right.
He'll just get his own mic and do it from wherever he's at.
All right, so Rubber Ducky, tell us about what this podcast is about.
Well, it's called Terra Neuh One. I don't think we're necessarily going to Terra Neuh One to
yes, we are.
everything. but I think it's just it's talking about the things that we as fans could have changed, or things that we liked. I mean, it could be anything, but mostly the things that we would like to see out of our favorite movies, Marvel, Star Wars. I mean, video games. We can talk about pretty much anything you want to talk about. I think it came from our long discussions about the new Star Wars movies. I think that's where it initially
Disney
kicked off, and what Disney's doing, and I think it just kind of sprouted from there. We've bitched about certain movies over the past couple months, and I think this will be a good way to kind of get our ideas of what should have happened.
We just decided that we wanted to put this out to the universe. You know, we sit around here and we talk about how this was ruined and that was not done right, and so that's what this is all about. What should we start with?
I always like to start with Star Wars because of how long and how the spans of the galaxy of Star Wars and the people that follow it. It started in the 70s, and now it's still just as big as it was then, if not bigger.
Yeah, bigger, I would say.
And the mixed reviews of what they've done compared to what they started with.
So here's my problem with Star Wars. Here's where, okay, so I feel like that, you know, before Disney even got a hold of it, I feel like George Lucas kind of screwed things up in his own storyline, which kind of upsets me. Let me start. I am a big advocate for good storytelling. You can keep your special effects. You can keep your... I don't care how good or bad the actors are. You know, I want a good story. And I feel like that Lucas, in the prequel trilogies, the Phantom Menace and all of those, I feel like instead of going back and watching his own movies and following the storylines that he had established in those movies, he went ahead and decided to do a bunch of lip service to fans. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. He Michael, I call it Michael Baying. He Michael Bayed it.
Yeah, the CGI just, for the prequel trilogy, I think they kind of, like you said, they went away from the story and they relied heavily on CGI, and the dialogue wasn't up to par.
They gave them a bunch of money and said, make a new Star Wars, make the prequel, and it's like, that's cool, but I mean, there's reasons why movies like Psycho and the original Halloween and things like that worked. Mm-hmm. They were just good stories. They had a good...
Yeah.
But now it's like, look at Transformers and things like that. It's like they've put so much into it, but like the story sucked. So when you talk about Lucas and the episodes, the prequels, it was too much.
The word of the day for me is continuity.
Yeah.
All right? If you build something in whether it's a book or a comic book or a movie, I want to see good continuity. You know, okay, so in the first Star Wars movies, I mean, Ben Kenobi turned out to be a fucking liar. Just a fucking liar. Because if you think about it, he told Luke, oh, you know what? I met your dad when he was a young pilot in the Clone Wars. Well, bullshit, because according to the other movies, you met him when he was a little kid, before the Clone Wars ever started. Then he said Vader hunted down and killed all the Jedi, but according to Revenge of the Sith, we knew that was a bunch of bull because they were ambushed and wiped out by a bunch of clones. He didn't remember the droids, right? C-3PO, R2-D2. He said Yoda was his teacher in Empire Strikes Back. That's not true. Qui-Gon Jinn was his teacher. Then, of course, we all know he lied about Luke's entire family lineage. He never told him about his sister. He didn't even recognize Leia. Vader being his father. He was just a damn liar. Alls I'm saying is, follow the storyline that you set up in your previous movies. Go back and watch your own damn movies. I just want continuity. But what I feel like that Lucas did, and instead of following the storylines he set up in the first movies, he came out and decided to do a bunch of lip service to the fans. He wanted to bring, hey, let's bring Tatooine. You know, everyone knows Tatooine. Let's bring Tatooine into the story. Oh, let's bring Jabba the Hutt, because everyone likes Jabba the Hutt. Oh, you know what, Boba Fett. Let's bring Boba Fett, because everyone knows Boba Fett. It's like, no, man, follow your storylines and go ahead and create new characters. You did that in the first movies when we didn't know those characters and they became beloved. Then you take those characters and now you're trying to stick a square peg through a round hole, and I just felt like that it was forced.
And, you know, going to the newer movies, they kind of got away from that, which, you know, there were original characters. You had Luke, and you had Han, and Chewbacca, and Leia, and, you know, you had your normal characters from the canon movie. But, like, it seemed like they got back to the original with Force Awakens. They got back to how they did the original movies with, like, brand new characters. You'd have no backstory. You're just learning about these people, and somehow it all ties together. But you're right. When it comes to the prequels, when they came out with them, what was it, 2000?
Yeah, I think 1999 was the first one.
Yeah,
Right.
when they came out with that, it was all the rage to be putting explosions and green screen and everything, and it was like you said, the continuity wasn't there. It was like, this isn't Star Wars was toys blowing up in a soundstage, you know?
Did Lucas direct the prequel trilogy? All three of them?
I don't think Lucas had anything to do with it.
No, I think he did. I want to say that he did The Phantom Menace.
But after that, I mean, I read the book, the Phantom Menace book, and I read it before I saw the movie. And there's a lot in the book that didn't like. And I read the book, and the book was great. And there was a lot, like the beginning of the movie of Phantom Menace is like chapter 5 in the book. Like there's this whole story in the book that like isn't even told.
Well, lore has always been a problem with Star Wars, and it's only getting worse, especially with Disney. The changes they're making, it's kind of...
Well, there's two kind of audiences, two kind of fans. There's fans that are just casual fans that just want to watch the movies, and then there's the deep hardcore fans that are going to, like you're talking about, they're going to go in and read all the novels and read all the comics and know every little thing about Star Wars from 1,000 years before the original movies to 1,000 years after.
I think we're somewhere in between that.
We
know the lore a little.
I am not the hardcore. What I want this podcast to be about is about the guys like us who are just enjoy it and get into it, and we'll read some articles about it, but not going to study every little book and know who.
This isn't high school. I'm not doing homework
right
every day on it.
I don't want to make it that much work, because I think that a majority of your fans are your casual fans.
Yeah. I think with the original story, they really fucked it up when they got to the new movies. My problem with the new story is Luke was this all-time badass Jedi, and then like would never question himself, even when he was fighting his own father, who was trying to kill him. He would not go against his way of doing things, and then just like has a lapse and just wants to kill off Ben in the new story. Like, oh well, he's a bad guy. I've seen this before, and then he goes to like kill him, and that's what turns Ben into this crazy Sith that wants to kill everybody.
Yeah, they definitely did not stick to the characters.
And Luke would, if you follow anything about Luke Skywalker, he would have never done that.
No.
That was not Luke Skywalker. Any other character, yes, but not Luke Skywalker, and they fucked that up.
You guys are looking at me like I'm supposed to say something.
I'm waiting for you to say something, intern. Let's do it.
What you got?
I do agree with that, though. I think Disney's going in and they're changing things that were just so pure about the original trilogy. I have such a problem with that because Luke was he kind of embodied the whole franchise from the beginning, like the hope, the pureness, the goodness that was behind the Jedi. And when you go in and kind of change the basis of his character, it's almost like a lack of respect, honestly, for the originals. And with the prequels and everything, it just feels like we're straying farther and farther away from what Star Wars was when it first.
And in the original trilogy, he would have gone across the universe to save his sister, his friends, his family. And in this one, you can't even get him to leave a fucking planet.
No.
And it's like, that's not Luke Skywalker.
Right.
Han Solo was pretty... I feel like they kept Han pretty linear from his original to what he is now. I mean, he was still the
cowboy gunslinger,
scruffy-looking nerf herder.
That's right.
He was always the cowboy gunslinger, and that's how he was in this one. And you still got in Force Awakens.
So what do we feel is the next move for Disney? where do they go from here?
Oh man, we got to predict what they'll do.
Not predict, but where do we think they should take it from here? With everything they've done so far.
Oh man, I think they should scrap it and start over.
I'd like to see a Boba Fett movie.
Force
personally.
Awakens 1.5.
Yeah.
Or something like, let's redo. I actually liked Force Awakens. I had nothing wrong with Force Awakens, and everything was still good. And even killing off Han Solo. Like, I felt like that was a pivotal part in that movie that made it work.
I liked Force Awakens, but Force Awakens was basically the original Star Wars just done over again.
Yeah.
But instead of Luke, we put Rey as this girl who's living alone on a desert planet. Does this all sound familiar? You know? And she goes off on an adventure, and she meets a scruffy nerf herder. Does this all sound familiar? It's the same story. And what are they fighting against? A big planet type thing. You know,
got a
missiles that
droid.
can destroy
They've got a
planets.
droid with them.
Does this sound familiar? It's the same story.
A droid that's carrying something very valuable to both sides.
Does this sound familiar?
It's a double-edged
Exactly.
sword, because how innovative can you get without kind of making everyone mad? Because, people, the more changes they make, it seems like the more fans just kind of revolt and say, like, why are you changing this? Why? So it's like, I think Disney, in their defense, they're kind of in a hard, position. How much do they change, and how much do they kind of keep honest and keep, the same way?
It was a fun storyline, but it was just a rehash of the original. And here's the thing that I never understood about The Force Awakens, that, okay, so in the last that we saw of everybody 30 years ago at Return of the Jedi, we destroyed the Empire. We destroyed the Emperor and Darth Vader. How come 30 years later, we still have a bunch of rebels hiding out? Why didn't they just take back over after they destroyed and we're back to the Republic?
Yeah.
Which I thought that they established well in the prequels. One of the few things that the original Phantom Menace prequels did, tell the story of Star Wars before the Empire took over, when there was a Republic.
Yeah, I think it... Oh, go ahead.
So I fully expected when they started doing the Force Awakens and these new ones, that we'd be back to a Republic again, that Luke should be leading the Jedi Temple and training some young Jedi.
But we skipped that story. That's what happened.
Yeah, we
jumped if you look at it, they skipped that whole story. Like, that story is what I wanted to see.
Well, that story should have been what happened then in the meantime. Did we have another takeover? How did the First Order come out of the splinters of the Empire and was still able to control things to the point where Leia and all them, who now had the power after destroying the Emperor, are now still hiding out on little
so many
forest planets.
unanswered things about the movies. Where'd Snoke come from?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I don't follow everything. I don't read the comics to the T, and I don't read the books like people study the Bible. But where'd Snoke come from? He just is there.
Yeah.
How did we kind of have an idea of how Ben became Kylo, but it's all in little snippets throughout the two movies of what happened between him and Luke. But that story you're talking about with the Republic and Luke training this whole new batch of Jedis, that was the story that they've got just skipped over.
That we should have gotten.
Yeah, and they were just okay, well, that happened, so now we're going to talk about 30 years later after that happened of what is happening now.
Well, back to his point, for all the hate that the prequels got, they did a fantastic job of leading the story into the original trilogy.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest quality of the whole, the first three.
It
was well done in that sense, as it gave you the idea of where the story came from and how everything came to be. When they do the sequel trilogy, I think it kind of jumped all over the place and it left people confused. It's almost like they made a a new batch of movies for people who had never even.
And where to go now? I mean to go off of Last Jedi, which I think we all kind of agree was a good movie, but wasn't a good. I mean, not it was a good movie in the sense of.
Don't put those words in my mouth.
In the sense,
You're the hater
in the
of the
sense of it
podcast.
being
I am
a
the hater.
one.
in the
always
sense
got
of
one.
it being a good movie. It was a good movie. It wasn't a good Star Wars movie.
And that's that's the big thing, that how do you do both?
But like to go on from here, I don't know. Like you've got a republic or you've got rebels. You've got like 12 of them. There's like 12 rebels left, one Jedi, a Wookiee, and a freaking droid, and then like this whole empire that has apparently can make guns out of planets.
Right.
and dreadnought ships the size of planets. So like it just seems
Typical,
like
all over the
typical
place.
Star Wars underdog.
I always laughed at the original, even when I was younger, that, where did the rebels come up with this monster fleet of ships?
Yeah.
How did they create all these ships that they had, those really big ones that the Admiral Akbar, the big ships that he was on, and then they had this large fleet of X-Wings. It's like, you guys are supposed to be a hidden little band of rebels that are hiding on
made in the backyard.
Right, exactly. How are you getting these ships? They should have been getting ships that they had stolen, like old stolen TIE fighters, and they shouldn't have had a whole fleet of X-Wings, but it should have been like, a mishmash of, well, we stole some TIE fighters and we stole some, but neither here
that
nor
was
there.
40 years ago.
Correct.
X-wings with like TIE fighter wings like patched into them, like
Taped
welded
together.
I feel like the story we missed is the first prequel should have been setting up how the Empire took over, and I think they missed it. The Phantom Menace set, they should have set up how the Emperor took over, and they did, and it was kind of wonky, but they got there. And then, of course,
It took them 3 movies.
the originals, the 4, 5, and 6, those movies, they were the gold standard.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, that's the story, and they set up a great storyline. I think they set up so many great things in that movie, and they didn't follow them in the prequels, and they didn't follow them in the new sequels with The Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So back to your point, intern, that the story just got so splintered with so many comic books and so many books and things like that they just didn't know where to go. So Lucas, in his fear of losing the core fans, felt like he needed to give the core fans something. Some of the things that I have a problem with here's how the original should have gone. The original Phantom Menace prequels, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have found Anakin wherever, on some planet or whatever. I wouldn't have put him on Tatooine personally, because I always felt that the reason that Luke was on Tatooine was because they were trying to hide him from Darth Vader. Well, why would you take him back to Darth Vader's damn home planet?
Well, because he used to always say he hated this. Remember, he'd be like, I hate the sand.
Yeah, but
like,
he used to go, in the prequel movies, he went there every damn week. He was there he went
Not because he wanted
his
to
mom
be.
and that
His
kind of
mom
stuff.
was dying.
So I don't think hiding him there. I think that they should have come up with a whole other planet where they found Anakin.
Sometimes hiding someone in the most obvious place.
Yeah, I
is
think
the,
I
you
think
know,
that that made sense, and the fact that Tatooine
didn't,
had so
didn't
much.
bother me. But yes, I get your point. Like he should have been hidden somewhere. You find Anakin. So then where do we go?
So, but I would have found Anakin in an older age if I would have written the story.
Oh yeah, I think that's a consensus.
He would have.
It would have helped. It definitely would have helped for the relationship side with Padme. Like that would. They could have done more with that, probably.
Clone War could have been a better movie if they had gotten all of that stuff out in the first movie.
I think the whole love story with Padme and stuff, that was okay, but I didn't think that was enough to turn him into the hatred that I felt like that he should have been a powerful character that they found at an older age who just had so much power with the Force that they were scared of him.
Yeah.
This guy was scary, and the reason that Qui-Gon wanted to teach him was because if we don't get this guy under control, there's no telling what kind of damage he can do. And I think that by the second movie, the Attack of the Clones movie, we should have already been in the Clone Wars in the first movie. Yeah. So then that would have made sense.
You save a lot of time in his childhood.
Right. That makes sense that Ben met him in the Clone Wars, just like he said in the movie. So that's where we should have gotten there. In the second movie is where he should have started becoming frustrated with the Jedi Council, because the Jedi Council, they're all peaceful and all that kind of stuff, and he should have been, I am so powerful that I can do stuff that you guys won't let me do.
Yeah.
Let me fix this. And they would be like, no, you
the idea of holding him back, which they kind of did in a sense, but they didn't execute it in the way they could have.
Correct, exactly. So then when in the second movie, I think that's where he should have turned into Darth Vader, where he should have finally, the Emperor saw his power and started manipulating him, and by the end of that movie, he's already become Darth Vader, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with the Jedi Council anymore. I'm more powerful than any of them.
Suited up, or
not suited up?
Okay, so
but
Kenobi. He's been pre-Kenobi.
Correct. He's not in the armored black suit, but he is Darth Vader. And the third movie, because this is one of the things that I had a problem with, and this is what I looked forward to the most. In the very first movies, Ben Kenobi said Darth Vader hunted down all the Jedis and killed them. But what did we get?
Oh yeah, a
bunch of clones, a bunch of clones shooting them with. Now the clones were idiots. We saw that in the first Star Wars movie when Kenobi said, "I can control their minds. You know, these are not the droids you're looking for," because they were just a bunch of mindless automatons, right? Mm-hmm. So for them to be able to take out the Jedi is just the silliest thing in the world.
Yeah.
What it should have been is Darth Vader turns evil and the Emperor says, go. The third movie, and this would have been the greatest
Just
movie
a
ever
witch
made.
hunt.
Just him of going Jedi to Jedi.
A witch hunt.
Yeah.
That'd be
Just him
awesome.
going down. And then the finale, of course, is Obi-Wan defeating him.
Yeah. Which could have embodied the rage of Anakin a little bit,
Yes, instead of just, oh, well, I love Padme and I don't want her to die. That was so...
But then her character almost, if we go by your storyline, her character's almost useless.
Correct.
It's not even...
I would still have her because we have to have Luke and Leia born, so he has to have a love interest.
But she come in a second.
But it
movie.
would be secondary. It would be a secondary story. It would be more about him just having his power. And they kind of got to that in the third movie, Revenge of the Sith, when he said to Ben Kenobi, look at what I build with my empire.
Oh, yeah.
Built that started early.
Yeah. They tried to, at the very last second, tried to make it seem like his intentions weren't really her. It was...
And I think that last movie would have been great. I mean, I would have had some of the greatest sword fight scenes ever put on film. Because I would have had him taking out 3 and 4 Jedis. I mean, this is how powerful he is. And at the end, the climax would have been the only reason Ben Kenobi beat him was by luck. There would be some luck that he was whipping Kenobi's ass. Right.
High ground.
Yeah.
That he was whipping Kenobi's ass and he just got lucky.
But I wouldn't like to make it seem like Obi-Wan was couldn't hold his own against him.
He held his own, but like I said, he would get lucky for the reason that he beat him, not because he was better than him, because I would establish in those first movies that nobody's better than Vader. This guy is a beast. And that's, of course, when he would get the armor and that kind of stuff. That would lead perfectly into the other movies, because he was supposed to be such a scary character. Now, going back to your point, in the third movies with Luke, all right, so now we've got Luke, his son, who... everybody else is afraid of Darth Vader. Luke is the only guy in the frickin' universe that thinks I can fix it. I can fix Hitler. Right? Basically, that's what I mean, Darth Vader is like Hitler. And it's like, I can fix Hitler. I'm going to change him. I think there's good in him. So then this guy who has this ultimate belief who he can turn Hitler good, now all of a sudden goes in the third movies and his nephew is a little strong with the Force and is like, oh, I better kill this guy.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think in that third movie you're talking about too, Revenge of the Sith. What I personally as a fan missed out on was Yoda. Yoda is this badass. Like they in the whole thing you've got these I guess you'd say there's 4 or 5 that you would just say were just total badasses. Yoda, Vader, Luke. You had some real, and then obviously the Emperor. So we got one good fight out of Yoda, and it wasn't even that good of a fight. It was kind of a good fight between him and wasn't it him and Dooku and
him and Dooku in the second, and then in Revenge of the Sith, him and Sidious had a battle.
And if you remember in both of those fights, when it was done, Yoda was whipped because he's older. So I would have established that Yoda probably could have handled Vader in his glory days, but he's an old man.
Yeah.
He may hold his own for a little bit, and I would have never had him even fight Vader. I would and just like they
definitely. In the original movies, they built Yoda up to be the ultimate Jedi master.
He's the leader of the council.
He's the leader. And then you get to these prequels, and he doesn't really do that much.
Well, I mean, he wasn't really that much younger. I mean, if you think the prequels are only 20-some years,
old, right?
But still, even when he was teaching Luke, he was miles ahead of where Luke was. Even when Luke was getting close, he's sitting there still just
that's because of his experience. Because he was 900, wasn't he 900 years old? So he was
I just want to see
old as hell.
And that going to another movie. You said you wanted a Boba Fett movie. I want a young Yoda movie.
Or a lot of people are advocating for old Republic. They want to go old Republicans, which I think could be you could do a number. There's so many really cool characters that we never really got to know. Mace Windu, really cool character that was very underplayed.
And then there were characters that were fan characters that came in, and that's another thing that I didn't like. I really liked Grievous. Grievous was bad, but he's a fan character. He wasn't in any of the lore. He's not in any of the comics. It was one of those characters that was made up for one of those cartoons that they started making, Clone War cartoons.
Yeah,
came out of that. Grievous, although he is a badass, isn't he a half?
He's a droid human.
Yeah, he's a cyborg of some kind.
Yeah, so he's used to be Jedi and now he's like a 4-armed Jedi lightsaber duelist. To me, that doesn't get beaten. I don't care who you are. You
Dude, his hands were spinning, bro.
Four lightsabers? No. Fuck that. I quit.
Yeah, no, I think that I don't mind Grievous's character. If they would have established that the little thing that was inside of him, the little, that was an actual alien, had some kind of force powers, but I
don't think was he a jet, or
there was
I thought he just said Count Dooku like trained him.
You're right.
He's
Count
not an
Dooku
established character at all.
Yeah,
there are a lot of
kinda
characters
threw him
in
in.
the Star Wars in the newer movies that came from.
Was
that?
that so? Do you think that whole thing was like completely pointless to even put in Revenge of the Sith? Like his whole when Obi-Wan goes to what is like Geonosis or whatever planet he goes to fight Grievous. Like, do you think they should have just glossed over that and made that movie like solely about Anakin?
That's when the order wasn't the order to kill all the Jedis called for right then when he was on that planet, and that's when they tried to kill him.
They shoot him off
Order
a cliff.
66. But no, in my opinion, no robot should ever be able to defeat a Jedi.
Oh,
I don't care if he's got 4 arms.
But he was such a cool, that guy was great. He was a cool character.
It's just one of those.
You could have still had a cool character like that, but I would have established he's not going to
he's
a
or bring him in earlier.
Yeah,
they could have brought him in earlier.
They felt like they threw him in there real quick. I'm with you that the way they introduced him, they just stuff one in there.
He's just in there
to
just
sell
to
toys.
be. I guess we've glossed over all that pretty well. I think what did get it right is the new prequel movies that they're making. Solo, Rogue One, like those movies. I haven't like Solo got a bad rap because they didn't like who played Han.
I actually liked him.
I liked him, and I loved that movie. I
love Donald Glover.
Rogue One is in like my top 4 favorite Star Wars movies.
Yes,
like it's up there with A New Hope and Jedi. Like,
yeah. So in the direction. So back to that like way long ago when I said where do they go from here? Is that where we want like them doing different, just random stories, kind of instead of keeping?
Well, the side stories help explain how we got to where we are, which is what Episode 1, 2, and 3 should have been, like the same kind of deal.
The ones that are called Star Wars Episode whatever, that's part of the Skywalker storyline, whether it's from Anakin to Luke to beyond. So then all these side stories are the ones like you're talking about, like if you wanted to see a Boba Fett movie or you wanted to see an older Yoda movie, that would be a side story like Solo and like Rogue One. Rogue One was excellent. I thought that it went away from Star Wars enough. It was almost like a World War II movie. That's what it reminded me of. This mission to go in and steal the plans and that kind of stuff. And I was so glad because I was worried when they did Rogue One. You knew that the storyline had to be they weren't getting out alive. This was a one-way mission.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that as they were
going to try to figure out a way to save everybody.
Sneak them off the planet somehow. And I'm like, that would have ruined it for me.
They have to die.
That would have ruined it.
Gotta go.
Sometimes the hero has to die in a movie. We live in this, happy world where all the heroes always live. No, I think some of the best movies
Participation award world.
You think of the old movie Shane. I don't know if either one of you seen the movie Shane, the old cowboy movie Shane. You want him to live. At the very end, he gets on a horse and he rides away from the farm, and he's made friends with this little boy who works on the farm. And the little boy is crying, "Come back, Shane, come back," because they're such friends. But Shane doesn't want the little boy to see him die because he knows he's about to die because he's been shot up. So he's riding away into the sunset. One of the greatest endings of a movie ever. The little boy's just crying, can't understand why Shane's leaving him. That's what I'm with Rogue One. Just, man, it was great that they had to wipe it out.
It still has, in my opinion, the most bone-chilling,
Vader scene?
I think it's best Star Wars scene. That scene when that lightsaber lights up in the dark.
Yeah.
When they board that ship, that lightsaber lights up. I had goosebumps.
Well, that was the first time we really saw like the terrifying nature of Vader.
And Vader was at a 10. I have never in any of the movies seen Vader go that hard.
Right.
And I mean, he's just killing people like it's nothing.
Slamming them into the walls.
Yeah, I mean, he stabs a guy
through the wall.
The door.
Yeah.
Oh, he's crushing guys with the Force and stuff,
and
too.
That was the Vader everyone wanted to see. And the original movie
we should have gotten in Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Hunting down Jedis.
Yes.
That's the Vader we should have gotten, and that would have been cool.
When they board that ship and it just goes black, and they're all looking down that hallway,
and the lightsaber just illuminates.
lightsaber just illuminates.
Yeah.
Oh man. Still one of my favorite
it's awesome.
scenes. It's so
Dude, he
cool.
rocks everyone in there
In
so
fact,
bad.
I would say that 2 of my favorite scenes of the entire Star Wars universe have come from the new movies. Last Jedi had the scene where Luke goes on the Falcon and he talks with R2. That scene, like, that took me back to A New Hope when they first meet.
And then they pissed all over it.
Yeah,
That's the
and then
thing
they
that makes
pissed
me
all
mad.
over it.
You
Like,
come up with a great scene like that, and it's like, oh man, Luke's back on
Yeah.
the Millennium Falcon, and then they piss all over it with the way the rest of the movie went. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you can't
but
just
that
have.
scene made that movie worth it for me. I don't like that movie, like, compared to all the other movies.
So
but
let's wrap
that
up
scene-
because we're getting long.
Yeah.
Hit me with your order of your Star Wars movies. Can you give me your order?
Number 1, definitely Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2, A New Hope.
Okay.
Unpopular opinion, I'll do Revenge of the Sith, then Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
And then Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, and then whatever order. The rest, I don't even care.
Gotcha. Rogue One. Where would you put Rogue One?
That's at the top, but everything else,
Okay.
it's whatever.
Me?
Yep.
A New Hope is always my go-to. It's the first one I ever saw. So
Yep.
it's like anything you do first. It just is always going to be the best. A New Hope, for me, Jedi. I like Jedi better than Empire. A New Hope, Jedi, Rogue One, Empire, Solo, Force Awakens, Revenge of the Sith. I don't even want to put them in it, but Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, and then I guess Last Jedi as a Star Wars movie goes at very last in mine.
Return of the Jedi will always be my favorite. I saw all of them in the theaters, and Return of the Jedi really, I just loved
Because
it.
of Leia in that
when
bikini. That's what it is.
It was when Luke and Vader got to finally fight a real fight. Then I would follow the trilogy backwards from there. I like Empire second, A New Hope third. I'm putting Rogue One fourth, and then I'm probably going Revenge of the Sith after that, and Phantom Menace, and then probably putting Solo right equal with Phantom Menace, and then I'm putting Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi is definitely the last. I did leave out Attack of the Clones. That would be right above The Last Jedi. I was not a fan of
Way down there for you, huh?
Last Jedi, Attack of the
Really just not
Clones.
doing it for you.
It's not. And no matter what movie comes out, it's probably going to be better than The Last Jedi.
And to end on that note, Force Awakens, yes, it wasn't as good as the originals, but I don't know. I liked the lightsaber fight with Kylo and Rey and Finn, and it was, to me, when Solo dies, like it gets ranked up there pretty high because it's the last Han Solo movie,
Right.
And I am a huge, as you know, I love the Millennium Falcon, and I love Han Solo and Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker. Moving forward, we'll dive into these separately. This was just an overview of Star Wars.
It won't always be Star Wars. If it's nerd, if it's geek, we're going to hit it. So we appreciate you listening and joining us here on Terra Neuh One.